Caleb Mercer hadn't cried in 12 years. Not when they buried his wife. Not when they lowered his baby girl into frozen ground. Not once in all the years of blood and gun smoke that followed. But when that half-frozen child opened her trembling hand and showed him $2 gold, every cent her family owned, something inside him shattered like river ice in spring. This is the story of how a 7-year-old girl walked through a blizzard to find the most dangerous man in Wyoming territory, and how she saved him. If this story touches your heart, subscribe and follow along to the end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The wind screamed through Red Canyon like a wounded animal. Caleb Cold Hand Mercer sat by the fire, cleaning his Colt revolver with the practiced ease of a man who'd done it 1,000 times. Around him, his gang huddled against the cold. 8 men who'd learned to fear nothing except maybe Caleb himself. They'd hit the Union Pacific payroll 3 days ago. 40,000 in gold coins sat in saddlebags against the cave wall. Enough to disappear. Enough to become ghosts. "Rider comin'." Young Billy's voice cut through the howl of wind. He stood at the cave mouth, squinting into the white fury of the blizzard. Caleb didn't look up. "How many?" "Just one, moving slow." "Lawman?" "Can't tell. Too much snow." Silas, Caleb's second in command, reached for his rifle. "Could be a scout. Marshall finally got smart, sent someone ahead." "In this weather?" Old Hank shook his head. "Man would have to be crazy or desperate." Caleb finished with his revolver and holstered it. He stood, bones creaking from the cold, and walked to stand beside Billy at the cave entrance. The figure was small. Too small. "That ain't no law, man," Caleb said quietly. "Then what?" "Shut up." He grabbed his coat and stepped into the blizzard. The cold hit him like a fist. Snow drove horizontal, sharp as needles against his face. He pulled his collar up and squinted into the white. The figure was closer now, stumbling, falling, getting back up. Caleb's chest tightened. It was a child. A little girl, couldn't be more than 7 years old, wrapped in a coat 3 sizes too big, her face nearly blue with cold. She was dragging herself through knee-deep snow, each step a battle she was barely winning. She saw him and stopped. For a long moment, they just stared at each other through the curtain of falling snow. The most wanted man in Wyoming territory, and a half-frozen child who should have been dead already. "Mister?" Her voice was so small, the wind almost stole it. "Mister, are you Cold Hand Mercer?" Caleb felt something cold that had nothing to do with the weather slide down his spine. "Who's asking?" "Please." She took another step, and her legs gave out. She fell face first into the snow and didn't get up. Caleb moved before he could think. He crossed the distance in 4 long strides and scooped her up. She weighed nothing, lighter than his saddlebags, lighter than his guilt. Her whole body was shaking, violent tremors that racked her small frame. Her lips were blue. Her fingers, wrapped around something clutched to her chest, were white as bone. "Hold on," he heard himself say. "Just hold on." He carried her back to the cave. "What in the holy hell?" Silas was on his feet, hand on his gun. The other men scrambled up, reaching for weapons, faces twisted with confusion. "It's a child," Caleb snapped. "Put your guns away." "Where'd she come from?" "The snow. Where do you think?" He carried her to the fire and laid her down on his own bedroll, started stripping off her frozen coat, her ice-crusted mittens, her boots that had holes worn through the soles. "Billy, get me blankets. Hank, heat some water. Not hot, warm." Move. The men scrambled to obey. Whatever questions they had could wait. The girl's eyes fluttered open. Big brown eyes, too big for her thin face, filled with a desperate determination that made Caleb's heart clench. "Mr. Mercer?" "I'm here." "I found you." A ghost of a smile crossed her cracked lips. They said nobody could find you. But I found you." "Yeah, kid, you found me." He tucked blankets around her, working quickly. "What's your name?" "Ellie. Ellie Thornton." "Okay, Ellie, you're safe now. You're going to be warm soon." "No." Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "No, I can't stay. I have to. Easy, easy." He put his hand over hers. Her fingers were like ice. "Whatever it is, it can wait until you're warmed up." "It can't wait." Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. "Mama's dying. Mama's dying, and I need you to save her." The cave went silent. Caleb stared down at this child, this impossible child who had walked through a blizzard to find outlaws, and felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "What did you say?" "Please," Ellie struggled to sit up. "Please, Mr. Mercer. The doctor won't come. He says we don't have enough money. But I heard the men in town talking. They said you took $40,000 from the train. 40,000. That's so much money. And I thought maybe—" She was crying harder now, her whole body shaking with sobs and cold and exhaustion. "I thought maybe if I found you, maybe if I asked nice, you might help. Because Mama's all I got. Papa died last winter, and Mama's all I got, and if she dies, I'll be all alone, and I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone." Silas stepped forward. "Boss, this is crazy. She's just a kid. Probably got turned around in the storm. Doesn't know what she's—" "How far did you walk?" The question cut Silas off mid-sentence. Ellie looked up at Caleb with those two big eyes. 2 days, maybe 3. I lost count." "Through the blizzard?" "It wasn't snowing when I started, just cold. The snow came yesterday, or maybe the day before. I don't remember." Caleb's jaw tightened. 2 days, maybe 3, through the mountain pass in winter. This child had done what grown men with horses and supplies couldn't do. She'd found the unfindable hideout of Cold Hand Mercer's gang, and she'd done it on foot. Alone. In a blizzard. "How?" he asked quietly. "How did you find us?" "I followed the tracks, from the train. Everyone said you went north to Red Canyon, so I walked north. When the snow covered the tracks, I just kept going. I knew you had to be somewhere. You could have died. Mama's dying." She said it simply, like it explained everything. And maybe it did. If Mama dies, nothing else matters anyway. Caleb stood up and walked away from the fire. He needed air. He needed to think. He needed to not look at those brown eyes that reminded him of— No, he wasn't going to think about that. "Boss," Silas followed him to the cave entrance. "We can't help her. You know that. The marshals got men all through the valley. We go into town, we're dead." "I know." "So we wait for the storm to pass, point her toward the nearest settlement, and she'll die. She tries to walk back in this weather, she dies. That ain't our problem." Caleb turned slowly. Something in his eyes made Silas take a step back. "She walked for 3 days to find us, Silas. 3 days through snow and cold that would kill a grown man. She's 7 years old, and she did that. For nothing. We can't—" "She's got money." The voice came from behind them. They both turned. Ellie was sitting up by the fire, blankets wrapped around her shoulders. She was holding something in her hands. "I can pay," she said. Her voice was stronger now, steadier. "I know outlaws want money. That's why you rob trains, right? For money?" She uncurled her fingers. 2 gold coins gleamed in the firelight. "It's $2, Ellie said. "It's all we have. Mama keeps it in a jar above the stove for emergencies. She says we should never touch it unless—" Her voice wavered. "Unless it's life or death." The cave was dead silent. "This is life or death," Ellie continued, holding the coins out toward Caleb. "This is Mama's life. So I'm giving you all our money, every penny. And I'm asking, I'm begging, please help us. Please." Caleb stared at those 2 gold coins. $40,000 sat in saddlebags against the wall. 40,000. And this child was offering him $2. Everything her family had in the world. "The doctor wants $50 to come out to our homestead," Ellie said. "I know $2 isn't 50. I know it's not enough, but you already have so much, and we have so little. And maybe you could just—" Her words trailed off. Her arms were trembling, but she kept holding those coins up, kept offering them like they were made of pure hope instead of gold. Something cracked in Caleb's chest. Something he'd kept locked away for 12 years. He walked back to the fire and knelt down in front of Ellie. Slowly, gently, he closed her fingers back around the coins. "Keep your money," he said. Her face crumpled. "But—" "Keep it. I don't want it." "Then you won't help?" The tears were coming again, spilling down her cheeks. "Please, Mr. Mercer, please. I'll do anything. I'll work for you. I'll cook and clean, and I'll never tell anyone where your hideout is. I promise. I'll do anything. Just please." "Ellie." He said her name firmly, cutting through her desperate words. "I didn't say I wouldn't help." She blinked. "What?" "I said I don't want your money. That's not the same thing." Behind him, Silas made a sound of disbelief. "Boss, you can't be serious." Caleb ignored him. He kept his eyes on Ellie. "Tell me about your mama. What's wrong with her?" Hope flickered in those brown eyes, small and fragile, like a candle flame in a hurricane. "She's got the fever. Started 4 days ago. Now she can't get out of bed. She talks to people who aren't there. Calls for Papa. Doesn't know who I am anymore." Ellie's voice dropped to a whisper. "Yesterday she got real cold, even under all the blankets. That's when I knew I had to find help. That's when I left." "Where's your homestead?" "Eagle Creek, about 6 miles past town." 6 miles past town, which meant she'd walked at least 30 miles through the mountains. In winter, in a blizzard. Caleb stood up and faced his men. "I'm going into town. I'm getting the doctor. I'm taking him to the Thornton homestead, whether he wants to go or not." Silas stepped forward. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. And for what? Some farmer's wife you never met?" "For her," Caleb nodded toward Ellie. "She walked 30 miles through a blizzard because she believed I might help. I ain't going to prove her wrong." "You've gone soft, Caleb. Lost your damn mind." "Maybe I have." He grabbed his coat, his hat, his gun belt. "Any man who wants to ride with me is welcome. Anyone who doesn't can stay here and keep her warm until I get back." No one moved. Then young Billy stepped forward. "I'll go." "Billy," Silas started. "I got a little sister back home," Billy said quietly. "Haven't seen her in 3 years. She'd be about this one's age now." He looked at Ellie, something soft in his hard face. "I'll go." Old Hank sighed and reached for his coat. Someone's got to keep you idiots alive. One by one, 4 more men grabbed their gear. Silas stood alone, shaking his head. This is suicide. Then stay here. Caleb checked his revolver, spun the cylinder. Keep her safe, keep her warm, and if we're not back by tomorrow night, take her somewhere safe and disappear. And the gold? Caleb looked at the saddlebags against the wall. $40,000. A lifetime of running. A lifetime of blood. If I don't come back, he said, give it to her. Every cent. Tell her to buy her mama the best doctor in the territory. Tell her... He stopped, swallowed hard. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't do more. Ellie watched them prepare to leave. 5 men checking guns, pulling on coats, wrapping scarves around their faces to protect against the cold. She didn't understand what was happening. Not really. One minute she was sure they were going to turn her away, or worse. And the next minute, the scariest one, the one they called Cold Hand, was promising to save her mama. Mr. Mercer? He stopped and looked down at her. Why? She asked. Why are you helping me? For a long moment he didn't answer. Something passed across his face. Something sad and broken and almost kind. Because you asked, he finally said. But other people must ask you for things all the time. The people you rob. They must beg you not to hurt them. That's different. How? Caleb knelt down so he was eye level with her. This close, she could see the lines on his face, the gray in his beard, the weight in his eyes. They beg because they're afraid of what I might do, he said. You asked because you believed I might do something good. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hands were rough and calloused, but his touch was gentle. Been a long time since anyone believed that about me, he said quietly. Maybe I want to see if they're right. He stood up and headed for the cave entrance. Mr. Mercer? He paused without turning around. You are good, Ellie said. I can tell. You just forgot for a while. His shoulders tensed. For a moment, she thought he might say something. But then he just pulled his collar up against the wind and stepped out into the blizzard. Silas watched him go, then looked down at Ellie with a complicated expression. You really walked 3 days to find us? She nodded. Weren't you scared? Yes. Then why'd you do it? Ellie pulled the blankets tighter around her shoulders. My mama always says being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs doing, even when you are scared. Silas stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head and almost smiled. Your mama sounds like a smart woman. She's the smartest person I know. Then we better make sure she lives. He walked to the fire and added another log. You hungry? We got beans. Ain't much, but it's hot. For the first time since she'd left home, Ellie felt something loosen in her chest. Not hope exactly. Hope seemed too big, too dangerous. But maybe something close to it. Outside, Caleb mounted his horse and looked back at the cave one last time. $2. She'd offered him $2 and a dying wish. And somehow, that was worth more than all the gold in Wyoming. He kicked his horse forward into the storm, and 5 men followed behind him, outlaws and killers every one, riding through a blizzard to save a woman they'd never met. Because a 7-year-old girl believed they could. Because a 7-year-old girl believed they were good. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. The ride to town took 4 hours. It should have taken 2, but the snow was relentless. the wind vicious, and twice they had to stop to dig a horse out of a drift. By the time they reached the outskirts of Copper Springs, Caleb's face was numb and his fingers ached inside his gloves. The town was quiet. The storm had driven everyone indoors. Smoke rose from chimneys and lamplight glowed behind frosted windows, but the streets were empty. "Doc lives on the north side," young Billy said, "past the church." "I know. Caleb had robbed a bank in this town 3 years ago. He remembered the layout." "You want us to wait here?" "No, come with me. If this goes bad, I want guns at my back." They rode through town slowly, 5 men with their hats pulled low and their hands near their weapons. Anyone watching from the windows would see outlaws. Anyone with sense would stay inside. The doctor's house was a 2-story building with a painted sign, Dr. Abraham Whitmore, physician and surgeon. Caleb dismounted and handed his reins to Hank. "Wait here. If anyone comes out of that house who isn't me, ride. And if it's the law, then ride faster." He walked up to the front door and knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. A voice from inside, muffled and annoyed. "Office hours are 9 to 5. Come back tomorrow." Caleb tried the door. Locked. He stepped back and kicked it open. Dr. Whitmore was a thin man with spectacles and a receding hairline. He was sitting by his fire in a velvet robe, a glass of brandy in his hand, a book open on his lap. The picture of comfort while a woman lay dying 6 miles away. He shot to his feet when Caleb walked in. "What? How dare you?" "Dr. Whitmore." Caleb closed the broken door behind him. "We need to talk." "I'll call the sheriff." "Go ahead." Caleb pulled back his coat, showing the revolver at his hip. "By the time he gets here, our conversation will be over." Whitmore's face went white. You're Cold Hand Mercer." "I am." "What do you want? Money? I don't keep much cash in the house, but—" "I don't want your money." Caleb stepped closer. "A few days ago, a woman sent word asking you to come out to her homestead. Martha Thornton. She's got a fever. You said you wanted $50 up front." Whitmore's eyes darted toward the door. Yes, the Thornton widow. But she couldn't pay, so—" "She couldn't pay because she doesn't have $50. She doesn't have $5. All she has is a little girl who walked 3 days through a blizzard to find help." "That's hardly my concern. I have to make a living." Caleb grabbed him by the front of his robe and lifted him off his feet. "Let me explain something to you, Doctor. That woman is going to live. You're going to make sure of it. You're going to get your bag, get on your horse, and ride out to the Thornton homestead tonight. Right now. In this storm." "That's insane. The roads are impassable." "I just rode through them. You'll manage." "And if I refuse?" Caleb leaned close. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Then I'll burn this house to the ground with you inside it. And I'll find another doctor." He let go. Whitmore stumbled back, clutching his robe, his face a mask of terror. "Do we understand each other?" Whitmore nodded frantically. "Good." Caleb reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. He tossed it on the table. It landed with a heavy clink of gold. "There's $500 in there. You're going to take it. You're going to save Martha Thornton's life. And when you're done, you're going to leave that money with her. Tell her it's back pay from her husband's employer. Tell her it's charity from the church. I don't care what you tell her. But you make sure she has what she needs." Whitmore stared at the pouch like it might bite him. 500. And if I hear that you kept even $1 for yourself. Caleb smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I'll come back, and we'll have a very different conversation." 20 minutes later, they rode out of town. Dr. Whitmore was with them, bundled in furs, his medical bag strapped to his saddle, his face the color of old snow. Caleb hadn't told his men about the money, hadn't told them about any of it, but young Billy had seen enough. "That was $500, he said quietly, riding beside Caleb. "From the train job." "Yeah." "For a woman you never met." "Yeah." Billy was quiet for a moment. "Why?" Caleb thought about brown eyes full of desperate hope, about $2 held up like an offering, about a little girl who believed an outlaw could be good. "Because someone asked," he said. They rode into the storm. The Thornton homestead was small, a one-room cabin with a sagging roof, a broken fence, and a well that looked like it hadn't worked in months. It was the kind of place that told a story without words, a story of hard winters and harder luck, of a family holding on by their fingernails to a life that kept trying to shake them loose. Caleb dismounted and pushed open the cabin door. The smell hit him first. Sickness, sweat, something worse. The woman lay on a narrow bed in the corner, barely visible under a pile of threadbare blankets. Her face was flushed with fever, her breath coming in shallow rasps. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 30, but illness had aged her. She looked like death waiting to happen. "Doc," Caleb stepped aside. "Do your job." Whitmore pushed past him, already opening his bag. Whatever else he was, he seemed to know his business. He started examining her immediately, checking her pulse, her temperature, peeling back bandages on her arm to reveal an angry red wound. "Infection," he muttered. "Bad one. She cut herself?" "How should I know?" "I need hot water, clean cloths, any alcohol you can find." "Billy, Hank." Caleb nodded toward the small stove. "Help him." While they worked, Caleb looked around the cabin. There wasn't much to see. A table, 2 chairs, a small dresser with a cracked mirror, a child's doll sitting on a pillow, loved so much its button eyes were nearly worn off. Above the stove, an empty glass jar, Ellie's emergency fund, the jar where she'd kept those $2. Caleb picked it up and held it in his hands. Everything she had in the world. And she'd given it away. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Whitmore worked on Martha Thornton while the outlaws moved around him, following orders, doing whatever needed doing. It was strange. These men who'd killed and robbed and terrorized half the territory, now boiling water and tearing cloth for bandages like they'd been doing it their whole lives. Near dawn, Whitmore finally stepped back from the bed. "She'll live." Caleb released a breath he hadn't known he was holding. "You sure?" "The infection was bad, but I've cleaned it. The fever should break within a day or 2. She needs rest, food, and someone to change her bandages." He looked at Caleb with something like confusion. "Why do you care?" "That's not your concern. You're an outlaw, a killer. You have no reason to—" "I have my reasons." Caleb cut him off. "Get your things. My men will take you back to town." "And the money?" "Leave it. Like I said." Whitmore opened his mouth, probably to argue, then seemed to think better of it. He gathered his bag and headed for the door. "Mercer!" Caleb looked up. "That little girl, the daughter, where is she?" "Safe." "You should know," Whitmore hesitated. "Whatever else you are, whatever you've done, you did a good thing tonight." Then he was gone, following Hank and Billy out into the gray morning light. Caleb stood alone in the cabin, listening to Martha Thornton's breathing slowly steady, watching the first rays of sun creep through the frosted window. A good thing. He'd almost forgotten what that felt like. Caleb rode back to Red Canyon alone. The storm had finally broken, leaving behind a world of white silence. His horse moved slowly through the deep snow, and with each mile, Caleb felt the weight of what he'd done settling deeper into his bones. $500. Half a year's worth of robbery. Gone in a single night for a woman he'd never met and a child who'd looked at him like he was something more than a killer. He was a fool. Silas was right about that much. But when he thought about those $2 about Ellie's trembling hands holding them up like a prayer, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The cave came into view just as the sun cleared the mountain peaks. Caleb dismounted and led his horse inside, expecting to find Silas pacing and furious. What he found was Silas sitting by the fire and Ellie curled up beside him, with her head on his leg, fast asleep. Silas looked up. Something had changed in his face overnight. Something softer. "She wouldn't sleep," Silas said quietly. "Kept asking when you'd be back. Finally wore herself out about an hour ago." Caleb crouched down and looked at her. Even in sleep, her brow was furrowed with worry. "Her mama's gonna live." Silas nodded slowly. "I figured. You wouldn't have come back if she wasn't." "Doc's got her stable. Fever should break in a day or two." "That's good." Silas hesitated. "That's real good." Caleb reached out and gently shook Ellie's shoulder. "Hey, wake up." Her eyes flew open instantly, wild with fear. "Mama!" "She's okay. Your mama's gonna be okay." For a moment, Ellie just stared at him. Then her face crumpled, and she threw herself into his arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Caleb held her awkwardly at first. He'd forgotten how to do this. Forgotten the weight of a child in his arms, the sound of tears that weren't from fear or pain, but from overwhelming relief. Then his arms tightened around her, and he held on like she was the only real thing in the world. "Thank you," she sobbed into his coat. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Shh, it's all right. Everything's going to be all right." He looked up and found Silas watching them with an expression he couldn't read. "We should take her home," Silas said. "I know. Soon, before the weather turns again." "I know." Neither of them moved. Finally, Ellie pulled back, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "Can we go now? I want to see Mama." "We'll leave within the hour," Caleb said. "You need to eat something first. Get your strength up." "I'm not hungry." "Ellie." He used the same voice he'd used to give orders to his men, firm but not unkind. "Your mama's gonna need you strong when she wakes up. That means you eat." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. While she ate the beans and hardtack that Silas prepared, Caleb pulled his second-in-command aside. "Where are the others?" "Billy and Hank ain't back yet. The rest are out hunting. We're low on supplies." "The gold?" "Still here. All of it." Silas paused. "Minus whatever you gave away." Caleb ignored the jab. "When I get back, we need to talk. About what comes next." "What comes next is we get the hell out of Wyoming before the marshal closes every road in the territory." "Maybe." "Maybe?" Silas grabbed his arm. "Caleb, what's going on with you? 3 days ago you were planning our next job. Now you're giving away money and playing nursemaid to some farmer's kid. Things change. Not like this, not overnight." Caleb pulled his arm free. "I said we'll talk when I get back." He walked away before Silas could argue further. The ride to the Thornton homestead took 3 hours. Ellie sat in front of Caleb on his horse, wrapped in blankets, her eyes fixed on the horizon, like she could will the cabin to appear faster. She didn't talk much. Neither did he. But somewhere along the way, her small hand found his where it rested on the saddle horn, and she held on tight. Caleb let her. When the cabin finally came into view, Ellie made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Mama," she breathed. "Mama." Before the horse had fully stopped, she was sliding down and running through the snow toward the door. "Mama! Mama, I'm home!" Caleb dismounted slowly. He should leave, should turn around and ride back to camp before anyone saw him, before the law got wind that Cold Hand Mercer was in the area. But his feet carried him forward anyway. Inside the cabin, Ellie was kneeling beside her mother's bed, clutching Martha's hand, crying and laughing at the same time. Martha was awake. Weak, pale, but awake. Her eyes, the same brown as her daughter's, were filled with tears. "Baby girl," she whispered. "My sweet baby girl. I thought I'd lost you." "I found help, Mama, just like I said I would." "The doctor came. He said—" Martha's voice broke. "He said someone paid him. Someone left money." "That was Mr. Mercer, Mama. He saved you." Martha's eyes moved past her daughter to the doorway where Caleb stood. For a long moment they just looked at each other. The widow and the outlaw. The dying woman and the man who'd given her back her life. "You're Cold Hand Mercer," Martha said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. My daughter walked through a blizzard to find you." "She did. Why did you help us?" Caleb didn't have an answer. Or rather, he had too many answers, and none of them made sense. "Because your daughter has eyes like my Emily. Because she believed I could be good. Because I'm tired of being the monster everyone thinks I am." "Because she asked," he finally said. Same answer he'd given before. Still true. Still not the whole truth. Martha studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her. "Thank you," she said. "I can never repay—" "Don't need repayment." "The money the doctor left, that was yours." "It's yours now." "I can't accept—" "You can and you will." Caleb's voice was harder than he intended. "Your daughter nearly died trying to save you. You don't get to throw that away because of pride." Martha flinched like he'd struck her. Caleb immediately regretted his tone, but before he could apologize, Ellie spoke up. "Mama, Mr. Mercer isn't a bad man. I know everyone says he is, but he's not. He's good. He just forgot for a while." Something twisted in Caleb's chest. Those words again, that impossible faith. "I should go," he said roughly. "You need rest, ma'am. Ellie, take care of your mother." He turned to leave. "Wait!" Martha's voice stopped him at the door. "Please," she said. "Stay. Just for a meal. Let me thank you properly." "Ma'am, I'm a wanted man. Every minute I'm here puts you both in danger." "Then at least let me make you some coffee. It's cold out there, and you've done so much." Caleb hesitated. Every instinct told him to leave, to ride hard and fast back to the canyon, grab the gold, and disappear before his luck ran out. But Ellie was looking at him with those eyes, those impossible eyes. "1 cup," he said. "Then I go." The coffee was weak and bitter, but Caleb drank it slowly, making it last. He sat at the small table while Ellie fussed over her mother, and Martha drifted in and out of sleep. The cabin was quiet, peaceful, so different from the chaos of his life. "Mr. Mercer?" Ellie had climbed into the chair across from him. Her face was serious. "Yeah? Why are you an outlaw?" The question hit him square in the chest. He set down his coffee cup. "That's a long story." "I like stories." He should lie, should make up some tale about adventure and freedom and the open road. The kind of thing that would satisfy a child's curiosity without breaking her heart. But Ellie had walked through a blizzard to find him. She'd offered him everything she had. She deserved the truth. "I had a family once," he said quietly. "A wife named Catherine. A daughter named Emily." Ellie's eyes went wide. "What happened to them?" "They got sick. Scarlet fever. Emily was 2 years old." He stared at his hands. "I held her while she died. Watched her take her last breath. Then I watched her mama die 3 days later, calling out for the baby she couldn't save." The cabin was silent, except for Martha's soft breathing. "I buried them on a hillside in Missouri," Caleb continued. "Dug the graves myself. Put up wooden crosses with their names carved in. Then I walked away and never went back." "That's so sad." "Yeah, it was." He finally looked up at her. "After that, I didn't care about anything anymore. Didn't care if I lived or died. Didn't care who I hurt. I figured if God could take my family like that, then nothing mattered anyway." "But you helped us." "Yeah." "So you do care. At least a little." Caleb felt his throat tighten. "Maybe I'm starting to again." Ellie reached across the table and put her small hand over his. "I'm glad," she said simply. "Emily wouldn't want you to be sad forever." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He closed his eyes against the sudden sting of tears. "Emily wouldn't want you to be sad forever." Out of the mouths of babes. A sound from outside made him jerk upright. Horses. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Caleb was on his feet in an instant, his hand on his gun. "Get down," he said sharply. "Both of you. Get on the floor and stay there." "What?" "Now, Ellie." She scrambled to obey, pulling blankets off her mother's bed to hide under. Martha was struggling to sit up, her face pale with fear. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Stay quiet. Don't make a sound." Caleb moved to the window and peered out. 4 riders. No, 5. They weren't wearing badges, which meant they weren't lawmen, which meant they were something worse. He recognized the man in front, Jack Denton, leader of the Denton gang, the meanest bunch of cutthroats in the territory. They'd crossed paths before, never peacefully. "Mercer!" Denton's voice rang out across the snow. "We know you're in there! Come on out!" Caleb's mind raced. How had they found him? He'd been careful. Had someone in town talked? Had they followed him from the canyon? It didn't matter now. What mattered was that 5 armed men were 20 feet from a cabin containing a sick woman and a 7-year-old girl. "What do you want, Denton?" "Want to talk business, Mercer. Heard you hit the Union Pacific. 40,000, they're saying. That's a lot of gold for one gang." "I earned it." "Maybe. But there's a new order coming. Bigger operations. Better scores. Boss wants you in on it." "Not interested." Denton laughed. "That's what they all say at first. Why don't you come out here and we can discuss it like gentlemen?" "I'm busy." "Yeah, I can see that." Denton's voice turned cold. "Nice little place you got here. Woman inside, I hear. Pretty one. And a kid." Caleb's blood turned to ice. "Here's the thing, Mercer. Boss doesn't like being told no. And I don't like riding all the way out here in the cold for nothing. So either you come out and talk, or my boys and I come in and take what we want." Behind him, Caleb heard Ellie whimper. He made a decision. "I'm coming out, but you make a move toward this cabin, Denton, and I'll put a bullet between your eyes before you can blink." "Fair enough." Caleb checked his revolver, took a breath, and opened the door. The cold hit him immediately. He stepped out onto the porch, keeping his hand near his gun, his eyes moving from one rider to the next. Denton sat on a black horse at the front, a smug smile on his scarred face. His men flanked him, hands on their weapons. "There he is, Cold Hand Mercer in the flesh." Denton leaned forward in his saddle. You look tired, Mercer. Going soft in your old age? Say what you came to say. Like I said, new operation, bigger scores. Boss is putting together something special, and he wants the best. Who's this boss? Denton's smile widened. You'll meet him soon enough, if you're smart. And if I'm not? Then things get ugly. Denton nodded toward the cabin. Real ugly. Caleb's hand moved closer to his gun. You threaten them again, and I'll kill you where you sit. See, that's what I like about you, Mercer. You got fire. But you also got brains, usually. So think about this. You ride with us, you make more money than you ever dreamed. You don't, he shrugged. Well, Wyoming's a big territory. Lots of places for things to happen. Lots of accidents. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Denton gathered his reins. You got 3 days to decide. We'll find you. He turned his horse and rode away. His men followed, one by one, until only silence remained. Caleb stood on the porch for a long time, watching them disappear into the white horizon. His heart was pounding. His mind was racing. 3 days. He had 3 days before everything went to hell. Inside the cabin, Ellie was sitting on the floor with her mother's hand clutched in hers. Both of them were crying. Are they gone? Martha whispered. For now. Who were they? Bad men. Worse than me. Caleb holstered his gun. You need to leave, both of you. Get out of Wyoming. This is our home. Your home isn't worth dying for. His voice was harsh, urgent. Those men will come back. If not them, then others. Word's gotten out that I was here. That makes this place a target. But where would we go? East, California, anywhere but here. He pulled out the leather pouch and pressed it into Martha's hands. This is everything I have left. Should be enough to get you somewhere safe. Martha stared at the pouch, then at him. You're giving us everything? You need it more than I do. But you just saved us. You can't. I can, and I am. Caleb knelt down so he was eye level with Ellie. I need you to be brave one more time. Can you do that for me? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Good girl. You take care of your mama. You get somewhere safe. And you don't look back. What about you? I'll be fine. You're lying. The words hit him harder than any bullet. She was right. He was lying. He had no plan, no money, and a gang of killers hunting him. Maybe, he admitted. But some lies are okay if they make the people we care about feel better. Ellie threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. I don't want you to die, she whispered. I don't plan on it. Promise me you won't die. Caleb hesitated. He'd learned long ago not to make promises he couldn't keep. But looking into those brown eyes, so full of faith and fear, he found himself saying the words anyway. I promise. She kissed his cheek. I'll pray for you, every night, forever. You do that. He stood up, his throat tight. I have to go now. Wait. Martha struggled to sit up. Please, at least tell me why. Why did you help us? The real reason. Caleb looked at her, at this woman who'd almost died, at her daughter who'd walked through a blizzard to find him. Your daughter reminded me of someone, he said finally. Someone I lost a long time ago. And when she looked at me, he stopped, swallowed hard. When she looked at me like I was worth something, I wanted to believe she was right. He walked to the door and paused with his hand on the frame. Be safe, Martha Thornton. Take care of that girl. She's something special. Then he was gone. The ride back to the canyon was the longest of his life. Caleb's mind churned with every hoofbeat. Denton's gang, the new boss, the threat hanging over the Thorntons. He'd brought this on them. By helping them, he'd painted a target on their backs. Every good deed has consequences, and the consequences of his mercy were about to get a widow and her child killed. Unless he stopped it. But how? He was one man with a dwindling gang and a price on his head. Denton had numbers, resources, and apparently the backing of some mysterious boss who was building an empire. The canyon entrance appeared through the trees. Caleb rode in slowly, alert for any sign of trouble. What he found was worse than trouble. Silas was standing in the middle of the camp, surrounded by the rest of the gang. They'd all returned while he was gone. Billy, Hank, the others. And they didn't look happy. "Boys," Caleb dismounted. "Something wrong?" "You could say that," Silas stepped forward. "We've been talking, Caleb, about the future of this gang." "Oh?" "About leadership." Caleb's hand drifted toward his gun. "Careful, Silas." "See, that's the thing." Silas kept walking, his own hand near his weapon. "We ain't so sure we need to be careful with you anymore. You've changed, gone soft, giving away money, playing hero for some farmer's wife." I explained my reasons. "Yeah, and they don't make sense. Not for a man like you." Silas stopped 10 feet away. The Caleb Mercer I knew wouldn't have risked everything for some kid with $2. He wouldn't have ridden into town alone. He wouldn't have made enemies with Jack Denton. "You heard about that?" "Word travels fast." Silas smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Denton's been recruiting, offering good money to anyone who'll ride with him. Some of the boys are interested." Caleb looked past Silas to the others. Some wouldn't meet his eyes. Others stared back defiantly. "And you, Silas? You interested?" "I'm interested in surviving, in getting paid, in not dying for some stupid cause that don't benefit me." Silas drew his gun. "So here's how this is going to work. You're going to give us the gold, all of it, and ride out. Tonight. You try to stop us, you die." Caleb didn't move. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." "Those men killed women and children in their last raid. Burned a whole town just for the fun of it. That's who you want to ride with?" "I want to ride with whoever pays best." "And the girl, Ellie? You going to stand by while Denton's men go back to that cabin?" Something flickered in Silas's eyes. Just for a moment. Then it was gone. "That ain't my problem." Caleb moved. His hand was a blur, drawing and firing before Silas could react. The bullet caught Silas in the shoulder, spinning him around. The camp erupted. Guns came up, shots rang out. Caleb dove behind a rock, returning fire, his mind calculating odds that weren't in his favor. 6 against 1, no cover except stone, limited ammunition. He was going to die here. A bullet whined past his ear. Another took a chunk out of the rock inches from his face. He fired twice more, heard a cry of pain. One down. "Give it up, Mercer," someone shouted. "You can't win." They were right. He couldn't win. Not like this. But he could buy time. He could make sure those men never made it to the Thornton homestead. Caleb rose from cover and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 more men went down. Then something slammed into his side, and the world went white with pain. He fell. Blood. He could feel it, warm and wet, spreading across his shirt. Footsteps crunched in the snow. Silas appeared above him, clutching his wounded shoulder with one hand, his gun aimed at Caleb's head with the other. "You should have walked away," Silas said. "Yeah," Caleb coughed, tasted copper. Maybe. Any last words? Caleb thought about Ellie, about her brown eyes, about the promise he'd made. I promise I won't die. Yeah, he said. Duck. Silas frowned. What? A rifle shot cracked through the cold air. Silas's eyes went wide. He looked down at the red bloom spreading across his chest, then back at Caleb with an expression of pure surprise. He fell forward into the snow and didn't move. Caleb turned his head, fighting to stay conscious. Young Billy stood at the edge of camp, a smoking rifle in his hands. Old Hank was beside him, gun drawn. "Sorry we're late, boss," Billy said. "Had to circle around." "You shot Silas." He had it coming. Billy walked over and helped Caleb sit up. "How bad?" Caleb looked at his wound. Blood everywhere, but he could still move, could still feel his legs. "I'll live." "Good, because we got a problem." "Denton?" "Worse." Billy's face was grim. "Word just came in. The marshal's got a posse coming. 50 men. They'll be here by morning." Caleb closed his eyes. 3 days, Denton had said. He didn't even have one. Billy pressed a cloth against Caleb's wound while Hank kept watch at the cave entrance. The bleeding had slowed, but the pain was getting worse with each passing minute. "We need to move," Caleb said through gritted teeth. "Now." "You can barely stand." "I'll manage." He grabbed Billy's arm and pulled himself up. The world tilted. He steadied himself against the cave wall. "How long until the posse gets here?" "Dawn. Maybe sooner if they push through the night." "And Denton?" "No word, but if he's smart, he's already on his way." Caleb's mind raced despite the pain. 50 lawmen coming from one direction, Denton's gang from another. And somewhere out there, Martha and Ellie were trying to escape with a target on their backs. "The gold," he said. "We leave it." Billy's eyes went wide. "All of it?" "All of it. We ride light and fast. Our only chance is to get ahead of both groups." "Ahead to where?" Caleb looked at him. "The Thornton homestead." "What? Caleb, that's suicide. You said yourself." "I know what I said." He pushed off from the wall and stumbled toward his horse. "But Martha and Ellie don't know what's coming. They think they have time to pack, to plan. They don't." "So we warn them, and then what?" "Then we get them out, whatever it takes." Hank spoke from the cave entrance. "There's 3 of us and maybe 30 of them. You got a plan for those odds?" "Working on it." "That ain't exactly reassuring." Caleb grabbed his saddle and nearly collapsed from the effort. Billy caught him. "You're in no shape to ride," Billy said quietly. "I don't have a choice. You could let us handle it, me and Hank. We go to the homestead, get the woman and the kid, meet you somewhere safe." "No." "Why not?" Caleb met his eyes. "Because I made a promise." They rode out 10 minutes later, leaving $40,000 in gold sitting in the cave like it meant nothing. Because right now, to Caleb, it didn't. The night was brutally cold. Each step of his horse sent fresh waves of pain through Caleb's side, but he kept moving, kept pushing. Behind him, Billy and Hank rode in silence, their breath forming clouds in the frozen air. They were 2 hours from the Thornton homestead when Caleb heard it. Gunshots. Distant, but unmistakable. "That came from the east," Hank said. "The homestead's east." Caleb kicked his horse into a gallop. The pain was blinding now, but he didn't care. Couldn't care. All he could think about was Ellie's face, her small hand clutching his, her voice saying, "I'll pray for you every night, forever." If he was too late, he couldn't be too late. The cabin came into view through the trees, and Caleb's heart stopped. Riders surrounded it. 5 of them. Denton's men. The door was open, hanging on one hinge. No movement inside. Caleb drew his gun and charged. The first rider didn't even see him coming. Caleb's bullet took him in the back, and he tumbled from his horse without a sound. The others spun, reaching for their weapons, but Billy and Hank were already firing. 2 more went down before they could get a shot off. The last 2 tried to run. Caleb shot one in the leg. The other made it 20 feet before Hank's rifle dropped him. Caleb was off his horse before it fully stopped, stumbling toward the cabin, his gun still raised. "Ellie! Martha!" No answer. He burst through the broken door and found chaos. Furniture overturned, blankets torn, Martha's medicine scattered across the floor. But no bodies. No blood. "They're not here," Billy said from behind him. "I can see that." "Maybe they got away. Maybe—" A sound from outside. Horses approaching. Many horses. Caleb moved to the window. His blood went cold. Denton himself rode at the head of a column of at least 15 men. They weren't rushing. They knew they had time. "Back door," Caleb said. "Now!" They slipped out into the darkness just as Denton's men reached the front of the cabin. Caleb pressed himself against the wall, fighting to control his breathing, listening. "Search the cabin," Denton ordered. "Find the woman and the kid." "They ain't here, boss. Somebody got here first." "Mercer." Denton's voice was thoughtful, almost amused. "Has to be. Spread out. They can't have gone far." Caleb grabbed Billy's arm and pointed toward the trees. They moved silently, keeping low, putting distance between themselves and the cabin. They were 50 yards into the forest when Hank suddenly stopped. "Someone's out here," he whispered. Caleb raised his gun, strained his ears. A twig snapped to his left. He spun, finger on the trigger, and found himself staring at Martha Thornton, wide-eyed and terrified, with Ellie clutched tight against her chest. "Mr. Mercer?" Ellie's voice was barely audible. "It's me. You're safe." Martha sighed with relief. "They came an hour ago, the riders. We barely got out in time." "How many?" "I don't know. 5, 6? We heard more coming and we ran." "You did good." Caleb holstered his gun. "Can you walk?" I think so." "Then we need to move. Denton's got men everywhere." They pushed deeper into the forest, moving as fast as Martha's weakened legs would allow. Ellie clung to Caleb's hand, silent and trembling. "Where are we going?" Martha whispered. "There's an old mine about 2 miles north, abandoned. We can hide there until—" "Until what?" Her voice cracked. "Until they give up? They won't give up. You said so yourself." "Then until I figure out another plan." "What plan? What possible plan could—" "Martha." Caleb stopped and faced her. "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She stared at him for a long moment. This woman who'd almost died, who'd lost her husband, who was now running through a frozen forest with her sick daughter because an outlaw had dragged danger to her doorstep. "Yes," she said finally. "God help me. Yes." They reached the mine just as the sky began to lighten. It was little more than a hole in the hillside, but it would hide them, for now. Caleb sat down heavily against the rock wall. His wound had opened again. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage. "You're hurt," Martha said. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing. Let me see." "Later. Right now I need to think." Ellie crawled over and sat beside him, her small body pressed against his uninjured side. "Are the bad men going to find us?" she asked. "Not if I can help it." "But there's so many of them." "I know." "And there's only 3 of you." "I know that too." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mr. Mercer, are you going to die?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He looked down at her, at those brown eyes that had seen too much, that face that had grown too old too fast. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you and your mama get out of this. That's a promise." "You already promised you wouldn't die." "I remember." "So you have to keep both promises. That's how promises work." Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the impossible odds, Caleb felt himself almost smile. "You're right," he said. "That's exactly how promises work." Billy appeared at the mine entrance. "Riders coming, 6 of them. They're searching the tree line." Caleb struggled to his feet. "How close? Half-mile, maybe less?" "Options. We can try to go deeper into the mountains, or—" Billy hesitated. "Or we can fight." 6 against 3, and one of us is half dead." "I know the odds." "And you want to fight anyway?" Billy's jaw tightened. "I'm tired of running, tired of watching bad men do whatever they want because nobody's willing to stop them." He looked at Ellie. She walked through a blizzard because she believed someone would help. Maybe it's time to prove she was right. Hank stepped up beside him. "I ain't much for speeches, but the boy's got a point. We keep running, they keep chasing. Eventually they catch us. At least this way we got a chance." Caleb looked at his men, these outlaws, these killers, these men who'd stolen and fought and done terrible things, these men who were willing to die for a woman and a child they barely knew. "All right," he said. "We fight." Martha grabbed his arm. "You can't! You're wounded! You'll be killed!" "Maybe." "Then don't do this! Please! Not for us! We're not worth—" "You're worth everything." The words came out harder than he intended. "Your daughter walked 30 miles through a blizzard to find me. She offered me $2 gold, every penny you had, because she believed I could help. No one's believed in me like that in 12 years. His voice broke. "I'm not letting her down. Not now. Not ever." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "Caleb." It was the first time she'd used his name. The sound of it, warm and real and human, cut through him like a knife. "Stay here," he said. "Keep Ellie quiet. No matter what you hear, don't come out until I come back for you." "And if you don't come back?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Ellie threw her arms around his legs. "Please come back," she whispered. "Please, please, please." He knelt down and held her tight. Memorized the feel of her small arms around his neck, the smell of her hair, the sound of her voice. If this was the end, at least he'd have this. "I'll do my best," he said. "That's all any of us can do." Then he stood, checked his gun, and walked out to meet the men who wanted to kill him. The fight was brutal and fast. Caleb positioned Billy and Hank on either side of the narrow trail leading to the mine. When Denton's riders came through, they were caught in a crossfire. 4 went down in the first volley. The 5th tried to retreat and ran straight into Caleb's bullet. The 6th, a big man with a red beard, charged forward, firing wildly. His shot caught Billy in the shoulder. Billy fell. Caleb stepped out from cover and put 2 rounds in the man's chest. He dropped like a stone. "Billy!" Caleb rushed to his side. "How bad?" "I'll live." Billy was pale but conscious. "Through and through. Hurts like hell." "Can you move?" "Give me a minute." They didn't have a minute. More riders were coming. Caleb could hear them crashing through the trees, shouting to each other, closing in. "Hank, get Billy back to the mine. I'll hold them off." "You can't." "Do it, now." Hank dragged Billy to his feet and half carried him up the slope. Caleb checked his ammunition. 6 rounds. Maybe 6 men coming. Maybe more. He steadied his breathing, steadied his hand. The first rider appeared through the trees, and Caleb fired. 1 down. Another came from the left. Caleb spun, shot, missed, shot again. 2 down. Pain exploded in his shoulder. He staggered, kept firing. 3 down. A horse burst from the underbrush. The rider's gun was aimed at Caleb's head. Click. Empty. Caleb closed his eyes. The shot never came. Instead, he heard a grunt, a thud, and when he opened his eyes, the rider was on the ground with a knife in his back. Standing behind him was a man Caleb had never seen before. Tall, dark-skinned, wearing buckskins like a trapper. "Who the hell are you?" Caleb managed. "Name's Thomas, Martha's brother." He retrieved his knife and wiped it clean. "Got word she was in trouble. Rode 3 days straight." "Her brother?" "That's what I said. You Mercer?" "Yeah." Thomas looked him up and down. "You're the outlaw who saved my sister." "I'm the outlaw who got her into this mess. Way I heard it, you got her out of a bigger one." Thomas offered his hand. "Reckon that makes us even." Caleb shook it. "You alone?" "Brought some friends. Trappers, mostly. Good men, with rifles." He whistled sharply. "Boys, come on out." 8 men emerged from the trees, armed and ready. Caleb stared. "Where did you—" "Martha sent word to me a week ago. Said she was sick, might not make it. I was already on my way when I heard about Denton." Thomas's jaw tightened. "That man killed my cousin 2 years back, burned his ranch, left his widow with nothing. I've been waiting for a chance to settle that score." "Well, you're about to get it," Thomas smiled grimly. "That's what I'm counting on." The next hour was chaos. Denton's remaining men, maybe 20 in all, found themselves facing an enemy they hadn't expected. The trappers knew these mountains, knew every trail and hiding spot. They picked off Denton's riders one by one, driving them back toward the valley. Caleb fought beside them despite his wounds. Adrenaline kept him moving, kept him firing, kept him alive when by all rights he should have been dead. Finally, they cornered what was left of Denton's gang in a narrow ravine, maybe 8 men, including Denton himself. "Give it up, Denton!" Caleb shouted. "You're surrounded!" A laugh echoed from the ravine. "Surrounded by what? A bunch of trappers and a dying outlaw? More than enough to finish you." "Maybe, but I'll take some of you with me." A pause. "Tell you what, Mercer, you and me, one-on-one. We settle this like men. Winner walks away." "And your men?" "They'll stand down, on my word." "Your word ain't worth much." "Neither is yours, but here we are." Caleb looked at Thomas. "You believe in?" "Don't matter if I believe him. He's got 8 guns in that ravine and good cover. We try to rush him, we lose half our men." Caleb's shoulder was on fire. His side was worse. He could barely lift his gun arm. But he thought about Ellie, waiting in that mine, about the promise he'd made. "All right, Denton, you and me. Let's end this." He stepped out into the open. A moment later, Denton emerged from the ravine. He was bigger than Caleb remembered, broader in the shoulders, with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "Cold Hand Mercer," Denton said. "The legend himself. You know, I almost respected you once, back when you were still a proper outlaw." "Times change." "They do. You used to be the most feared man in Wyoming. Now look at you. Bleeding, broken, fighting for some farmer's widow and her brat." Denton shook his head. "What happened to you?" "I remembered what mattered." "And what's that?" Caleb thought about Catherine, about Emily, about the graves on a hillside in Missouri that he'd never visited again, About Ellie, holding up $2 like they were worth more than all the money in the world. "Being worth something," he said. "Being worth a damn." Denton laughed. "That's rich. The killer with a conscience." He drew his gun in one smooth motion. "Let's see how much your conscience helps you now." They faced each other across 20 feet of frozen ground. Caleb's hand hovered over his holster. His fingers felt numb. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. "On 3, Denton said. 1, Caleb steadied himself. 2, he thought of Ellie's eyes, her faith, her impossible, unearned faith. 3, Denton drew. Caleb was faster. His bullet caught Denton in the chest. Denton's shot went wide, burying itself in a tree trunk. Denton stood for a moment, swaying, looking down at the blood spreading across his shirt. Then he looked up at Caleb with something like surprise. "How?" he whispered. "Practice," Caleb said. Denton fell. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then one of Denton's men threw down his gun. The others followed, one by one, until every weapon lay in the snow. It was over. Caleb felt his legs give out. He dropped to his knees, then onto his side, the cold snow actually feeling good against his fevered skin. Footsteps. Voices. Someone calling his name. Then nothing. He woke to warmth and the smell of wood smoke. Caleb opened his eyes slowly. He was lying on a bed, a real bed, not a bedroll, in a room he didn't recognize. "He's awake!" Ellie's face appeared above him, her eyes bright with tears and joy. "Mr. Mercer, you're alive!" "Seems like it," he managed. His voice was barely a whisper. "You were asleep for 2 days. Mama said you lost too much blood. Thomas's friend stitched you up. Does it hurt? It looks like it hurts." "Ellie," Martha's voice came from somewhere to his left. "Let him breathe." The girl reluctantly pulled back. Martha took her place, looking down at Caleb with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You almost died," she said. "Wouldn't be the first time." "The doctor says you'll be okay. Eventually. You need rest." "The men. Denton's gang. What happened?" "Thomas and the trappers turned them over to the marshal. All of them. They're facing trial for murder, robbery, 6 other charges." "The marshal didn't ask about me?" Martha hesitated. "He asked. Thomas told him you died in the fighting. Said we buried you in the mountains." Caleb stared at her. "He lied for me?" "We all did." "Why?" Martha reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm against his cold skin. "Because you saved us," she said simply. "Because Ellie believes you're a good man. And because—" she paused, something shifting in her eyes. "Because maybe I'm starting to believe it too." Caleb couldn't speak, couldn't find words for what he was feeling. Ellie climbed onto the bed and curled up against his uninjured side. "You kept your promise," she said. "Both of them." "I did." "I knew you would." "How?" She looked up at him with those eyes, those impossible, too big, too knowing eyes. "Because you're a good man," she said. "You just forgot for a while. But you remembered now, and that's all that matters." Caleb closed his eyes. For the first time in 12 years, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt home. The days blurred together after that. Caleb drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes waking to find Ellie curled up beside him, sometimes to Martha pressing a cool cloth to his forehead. The fever came and went. So did the nightmares. He dreamed of Catherine, of Emily, of graves on a hillside he'd never had the courage to visit. But now, there were new faces in his dreams, too. Brown eyes full of faith. Small hands holding gold coins. A voice saying, "You're a good man. You just forgot for a while." On the 5th day, he woke up clear-headed for the first time. The room was quiet. Afternoon light filtered through the window, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. Caleb tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his side and shoulder. "Easy," Martha appeared at his bedside, her hand gentle on his chest. "You're not ready for that yet." "Where's Ellie?" "Outside with Thomas. He's teaching her to track." "Track what?" "Rabbits, mostly. She's terrible at it." Martha almost smiled. "But she loves it." Caleb let himself sink back into the pillows. His body felt like it had been trampled by a horse. Maybe 2 horses. "How long?" "5 days. You had a fever for most of it. The doctor wasn't sure you'd make it." "Takes more than a few bullets to kill me." Apparently, Martha sat down in the chair beside his bed. "Billy and Hank have been asking about you. They're staying in Thomas's barn." "They stayed? Where else would they go?" Caleb didn't have an answer for that. These men, outlaws, killers, had stayed to make sure he survived, had risked their lives for a woman and child they didn't know. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Understand what?" "Any of this. Why you helped me. Why Thomas lied to the marshal. Why everyone's acting like I'm some kind of hero when 3 weeks ago I was robbing trains." Martha was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Do you know what Ellie said when she came back from finding you? Before she fell asleep?" "What?" "She said, 'Mr. Mercer has sad eyes, like Papa's were after Grandma died. I think he needs somebody to take care of him.'" Martha's own eyes were bright with unshed tears. "My 7-year-old daughter looked at the most wanted man in Wyoming and saw someone who needed help. How could I turn away from that?" Caleb's throat tightened. "I don't deserve—" "Maybe not. Maybe none of us deserve the kindness we receive." Martha reached out and took his hand. "But we receive it anyway. That's what grace is." He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if there were words for the feeling expanding in his chest. So he just held her hand and let the silence speak for him. A week later, Caleb was finally strong enough to walk. He made it to the porch before his legs gave out. Thomas caught him before he hit the ground. "Stubborn fool," Thomas muttered, lowering him into a chair. "Doc said 2 more weeks at least." "I've been lying in that bed long enough." "And you'll lie in it longer if you tear those stitches open." Caleb didn't argue. He was too tired to argue. Too tired for much of anything except sitting here, watching Ellie chase chickens around the yard while Martha laughed at her attempts. "She's a good woman," Thomas said, following his gaze. "My sister. Lost her husband, nearly lost her life, and she's still standing, still smiling. She's stronger than she looks." "They both are." Thomas sat down on the porch railing. "You planning to stick around?" The question caught Caleb off guard. "What?" "Stick around. Stay. Whatever you want to call it." "I hadn't thought about it." "Liar." Caleb looked at him sharply. Thomas just shrugged. "I've seen how you look at her, how you look at the kid. That's not the look of a man planning to ride off into the sunset." "Even if I wanted to stay, I couldn't. I'm a wanted man. Every lawman in the territory is looking for Cold Hand Mercer." "Cold Hand Mercer is dead. I told the marshal so myself." "He won't stay dead forever. Someone will talk. Someone always talks." "Maybe." Thomas leaned forward. "Or maybe you could become someone else. New name, new life. People do it all the time out here." "It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" Caleb opened his mouth to argue. But before he could speak, Ellie came running up to the porch. "Mr. Mercer, you're outside." "I am. Does this mean you're better?" "Getting there." She climbed onto the porch and stood in front of him, her face serious. "I prayed for you every night, just like I said I would." "I know. Your mama told me." "Did it help? The praying?" Caleb looked at this child, this impossible, miraculous child who had changed everything. "Yeah," he said. "I think it did." Ellie beamed. Then her face turned thoughtful. "Mr. Mercer, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you going to stay with us?" The question hit him like a bullet. He looked at Thomas, who raised an eyebrow. Looked at Martha, who had stopped what she was doing and was watching from across the yard. "Ellie, Because Mama says you might have to leave. But I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay forever." "Forever's a long time." "I know. That's why I want it." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. 2 gold coins glinted in the afternoon light. "Uncle Thomas gave these back to me," she said. "He found them in your pocket when he was patching you up." Caleb's chest tightened. He'd kept those coins through everything. The fighting, the running, the dying. And Thomas had kept them safe for him. "They're yours," he said. "I was just holding on to them." "I know, but I want you to have them. For real this time." She pressed the coins into his palm. "Mama says when you give someone something from your heart, it means they're family. So now you're family, and family doesn't leave." Caleb stared at the 2 gold dollars in his hand. Everything she had in the world, given twice. "Ellie." "Please?" Her voice cracked. "Please stay. I already lost Papa." "I don't want to lose you too." Something broke inside him. Something that had been broken for 12 years finally shattered completely. And in its place, something new began to grow. He pulled Ellie into his arms and held her tight. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'll stay." She burst into tears against his shoulder. Happy tears, relieved tears. And Caleb found that his own eyes weren't exactly dry either. When he looked up, Martha was standing at the edge of the porch, her hand pressed to her heart, tears streaming down her face. "You mean it?" she asked. "I mean it." She crossed to him in 3 quick steps and took his face in her hands. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." Then she kissed his forehead, soft and gentle, and Caleb felt something he hadn't felt in 12 years. Hope. But hope, he would learn, was a fragile thing. 2 weeks later, a rider came to the homestead. Caleb saw him first, a lone figure approaching from the south, moving slowly, deliberately. His hand went to his gun before he remembered he wasn't wearing one. "Thomas?" Thomas looked up from the fence he was mending, saw the rider. His face hardened. "Get inside. Take Martha and Ellie." "Who is it?" "I don't know, but I don't like the way he's moving." Caleb gathered the others and brought them into the cabin. Billy and Hank appeared from the barn, rifles in hand. The rider stopped 50 feet from the house and raised his hands. "I come in peace," he called out. "Just want to talk." Thomas stepped forward, his own rifle ready. "Talk about what?" "About the gold. The 40,000 that Cold Hand Mercer stole from the Union Pacific." Caleb's blood went cold. "Don't know what you're talking about," Thomas said. "Mercer's dead." "Is he?" The rider smiled. "Then who's that on your porch?" For a moment, nobody moved. Then Caleb stepped forward. "What do you want?" The rider's smile widened. "There he is, the legend himself." He lowered his hands slowly. "Name's Garrett. I work for a man who's very interested in that gold." "What man?" "The same man Denton worked for. The man who's building something big in this territory. Something you interrupted. Denton's dead. Denton was a tool. Tools can be replaced. Garrett's eyes were cold. The gold, on the other hand, is harder to come by. So here's the deal. You tell us where you hid it, and we'll leave you alone. You, the widow, the kid, everyone walks away happy. And if I don't? Garrett shrugged. Then things get unpleasant. For everyone. Caleb's mind raced. The gold was still in the canyon. $40,000 sitting in a cave, waiting to be found. I don't have it anymore. Gave it away. To who? Does it matter? It matters to my boss. Garrett's hand drifted toward his gun. He's not a patient man, Mercer, and he doesn't like loose ends. Then tell your boss to come here himself. We can discuss it face to face. Oh, he will, when he's ready. Garrett backed toward his horse. You've got 3 days. Find that gold, or we'll find it ourselves, and we won't be gentle about the looking. He mounted up and rode away without another word. Thomas turned to Caleb. What gold? From the train robbery. We left it in our hideout when everything went sideways. $40,000? Yeah. And you just left it there? Didn't seem important at the time. Thomas stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. You're either the noblest man I ever met or the stupidest. Probably both. So what do we do? Caleb looked back at the cabin, where Martha stood in the doorway with Ellie clutched against her side. We get the gold, he said, and we use it to end this. How? I'm working on it. That night, Caleb told Martha everything. They sat on the porch after Ellie had gone to bed, the stars wheeling overhead, the cold wind carrying the promise of more snow. He told her about the train robbery, about the gold, about Denton and the mysterious boss, and the threat that still hung over them. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. So even with Denton dead, we're not safe. No. And this boss, whoever he is, he'll keep coming. Until he gets what he wants, yes. Martha drew her shawl tighter around her shoulders. What are you going to do? The only thing I can do. Get the gold. Find out who this boss is. End it. How? I don't know yet. He stared out into the darkness. But I'm not going to run. Not this time. I'm not going to let them drive me away from... He stopped. Couldn't finish. From what? Martha asked softly. Caleb turned to look at her. In the moonlight, her face was pale and beautiful and tired. From you, he said. From Ellie. From whatever this is that we're building here. Martha's breath caught. Caleb. I know I don't have a right to say that. I know I'm a wanted man, with nothing to offer but trouble. But these past few weeks, staying here, watching Ellie grow, talking with you, he shook his head. I haven't felt this way since Catherine died. Didn't think I could feel this way again. Neither did I. Martha's voice was barely a whisper. When James died, I thought my heart would never heal. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone, just me and Ellie, scraping by until the land finally beat us. And now? Now I don't know what to think. She reached out and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his scarred cheek. You're not what I expected, Caleb Mercer. Not what anyone would expect. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. She almost smiled. But I'm willing to find out. He kissed her then, soft and slow and careful, like she was something precious that might break. She kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I should go inside, Martha said. Ellie might wake up. Yeah. Neither of them moved. 3 days, Martha said. You have 3 days to figure this out. I know. Don't die. He laughed, despite everything. I'll do my best. She kissed him once more, quick this time, almost desperate. And then she was gone, disappearing into the cabin and leaving Caleb alone with his thoughts. 3 days. 3 days to find $40,000, identify a mysterious enemy, and somehow save the only family he had left. He'd faced worse odds. Probably. The ride to Red Canyon took a full day. Caleb brought Billy and Hank with him. Thomas wanted to come too, but someone needed to stay and protect Martha and Ellie. If I'm not back in 3 days, take them and run, Caleb told him. Go east, California, anywhere but here. And leave you? If it comes to that, yes. Thomas didn't argue. He understood. The canyon was exactly as they'd left it. The cave entrance hidden behind brush and fallen rock. The gold, sitting in saddlebags against the wall, untouched. 40,000, Billy breathed. Just sitting here. Not for long. Caleb started loading the saddlebags onto the horses. We need to move fast. Move where? What's the plan? Caleb cinched a strap tight. We're going to town. Hank stared at him. Town? You're wanted in 3 counties. Cold Hand Mercer is wanted. Caleb Mercer is dead, remember? That disguise won't hold up forever. It doesn't need to hold up forever. Just long enough. Long enough for what? Caleb turned to face them both. Long enough to find out who this boss is. Someone in town knows. Someone always knows. We find them, we find him. And then? Then we end this. Permanently. They reached Copper Springs by nightfall. Caleb kept his hat low and his collar high, moving through the shadows like a ghost. Billy and Hank followed, equally cautious. The saloon was crowded, perfect for eavesdropping. Caleb found a table in the corner and ordered whiskey he had no intention of drinking. Billy sat beside him. Hank positioned himself near the door. They waited. An hour passed. 2. The saloon emptied and filled again. Then Caleb heard it. 2 men at the bar, talking low. One mentioned Denton. The other mentioned the boss. Says he's coming to town himself, tomorrow night. About time. Been waiting months for this. You know what he looks like? Nobody does. That's the point. Caleb's grip tightened on his glass. What about the gold? Mercer's gold. Garrett says he's got a lead. Some homestead outside town. Widow and a kid. Easy pickings. That's what he's counting on. The men laughed and ordered another round. Caleb stood up slowly. He crossed to the bar, keeping his movements casual, and positioned himself beside the 2 men. Evening, gentlemen. They looked at him warily. Help you with something? Couldn't help it over here. You mentioned a boss coming to town. What's it to you? Just curious. I'm looking for work. The men exchanged glances. What kind of work? The kind that pays well and doesn't ask too many questions. One of them, a thin man with a scar across his nose, leaned closer. You got experience? Enough. Name? Does it matter? The thin man smiled. I like you. Got brass. He drained his drink. Tomorrow night, warehouse on the edge of town, north side. Be there at midnight if you're serious. I'll be there. Come alone, and come armed. The boss doesn't like weakness. Caleb nodded and walked away. Outside, Billy was waiting. You get what you needed? Tomorrow night, Midnight, the warehouse. You're going? I'm going. Alone? Caleb looked at him. What do you think? Billy almost smiled. I think we've come too far to back out now. They rode back to the homestead that night, pushing their horses hard. Martha was waiting on the porch when they arrived. Her face was pale with worry. You found it? The gold? We found it. Caleb dismounted and took her hands. And we found something else. The boss is coming to town tomorrow. I'm going to meet him. Meet him? Caleb, that's suicide. Maybe, but it's also our only chance. He squeezed her hands. If I can find out who he is, where he operates, I can stop him. Not just for us, for everyone he's hurt. And if you can't? Then you take Ellie and run. Thomas will keep you safe. Martha's eyes filled with tears. I just found you. I can't lose you now. You won't. He pulled her close. I promise. You keep making promises. And I keep keeping them. She laughed, despite herself, a wet, broken sound. You're impossible. So I've been told. That night, Caleb sat with Ellie while she fell asleep. Mr. Mercer? Yeah? Are you going somewhere? He hesitated. What makes you think that? Mama's been crying. She thinks I can't hear, but I can. Ellie's eyes were too wise for her years. You're going to fight the bad men again, aren't you? I'm going to try to stop them, so they can't hurt us anymore. But what if they hurt you? Then your Uncle Thomas will take care of you and your mama. Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then she reached under her pillow and pulled out 2 gold coins. Here. Ellie, no, those are yours. I know, but they're magic coins. She pressed them into his hand. They brought you to us. They helped you beat the bad men before. Maybe they'll help you again. Caleb looked at the coins, gleaming softly in the lamplight. $2. Everything she had. Given 3 times now. Thank you, he whispered. You have to come back, Ellie said. You promised. I know. Promises are forever. Yes. He kissed her forehead. They are. She fell asleep, holding his hand. Caleb stayed there for a long time, watching her breathe, memorizing her face. Then he slipped the coins into his pocket, checked his gun, and walked out to meet his fate. The warehouse loomed in the darkness like a sleeping beast. Caleb approached from the east, keeping to the shadows, his hand resting on the grip of his revolver. Billy and Hank were somewhere behind him, positioned at different angles, ready to move if things went wrong. Things would probably go wrong. He pushed through the side door and found himself in a cavernous space lit by scattered lanterns. A dozen men stood in clusters, talking low, hands near their weapons. They looked up when he entered. You the new recruit? Someone asked. That's me. Name? Call me Cal. The man grunted and jerked his head toward the back. Boss is waiting. Don't keep him waiting long. Caleb walked through the warehouse, past crates and barrels, and men who watched him with suspicious eyes. His heart was pounding, but his face stayed calm. He'd worn this mask before. He could wear it again. A makeshift office had been set up in the far corner. A desk, 2 chairs, a man sitting behind the desk with his back to Caleb. You wanted to see me? The man turned around. Caleb's blood froze. Hello, Caleb. It was Doc Whitmore, the same doctor he'd forced to save Martha's life, the same doctor he'd trusted with $500, the same doctor who was now smiling at him like a cat with a mouse. Surprised? Whitmore leaned back in his chair. I imagine you are. Most people don't expect their local physician to be running half the criminal operations in Wyoming. You're the boss. I prefer businessman. But yes, I've been building something here for years. Slowly. Carefully. Men like Denton did the dirty work while I stayed clean. Respectable. Above suspicion. And the gold? Oh, that was just a bonus. I'd been planning to expand anyway. Your train robbery accelerated the timeline. Whitmore steepled his fingers. But then you went soft. Started playing hero. Killed my best men. Cost me a fortune. Sounds like a personal problem. Whitmore's smile didn't waver. You know, when Garrett told me Cold Hand Mercer was still alive, I didn't believe him. The great outlaw, hiding on some dirt farm, playing house with a widow and her brat? It seemed too pathetic to be true. And yet, Whitmore stood up slowly. The question now is what to do with you. I could have you killed, obviously, but that seems wasteful. You have skills, reputation, value. I'm not interested in working for you. Everyone's interested in working for me. They just don't know it yet. Whitmore walked around the desk. Here's my offer. You bring me the gold, all 40,000, and you come work for me. In return, I'll leave the widow alone. The kid too. They can live their quiet little life while you and I build an empire. And if I refuse? Whitmore's eyes went cold. Then I burn that homestead to the ground with everyone inside, and I make you watch before I kill you. The silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. Caleb thought about Martha, about Ellie, about the promises he'd made. I need time to think about it. You have until dawn. After that, my offer expires. Whitmore gestured toward the door. You know the way out. Caleb left the warehouse with his mind racing. Whitmore. The doctor. All this time the enemy had been right in front of him. Billy and Hank were waiting in the shadows. Well? Billy asked. It's Whitmore. Doc Whitmore. He's been running everything from the start. The doctor? You're joking. I wish I was. Hank swore under his breath. So what do we do? Caleb pulled the 2 gold coins from his pocket and stared at them in the moonlight. $2. Everything Ellie had in the world, given to him 3 times because she believed he was good. Because she believed he could save them. We end this, he said. Tonight. The plan was simple. Maybe too simple. Caleb would go back to the warehouse at dawn, pretending to accept Whitmore's offer. While Whitmore was distracted, Billy and Hank would set fire to the warehouse from outside. In the chaos, Caleb would take out Whitmore. Simple, direct, probably fatal. This is suicide, Billy said for the 3rd time. You got a better idea? We could run, take the gold, take the women, disappear. And spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? No, Caleb shook his head. This ends here, one way or another. Then let me go in with you. 2 guns are better than 1. I need you outside. If something goes wrong, someone has to warn Martha. And if everything goes wrong? Caleb looked at him steadily. Then you take care of them. Promise me. Billy's jaw tightened. I promise. Good. Caleb checked his gun one final time. See you on the other side. Dawn came too fast. Caleb walked back to the warehouse alone, his boots crunching on the frozen ground, his breath making clouds in the cold air. The 2 gold coins were in his pocket, pressing against his leg with every step. The guards let him in without question. Whitmore was waiting at his desk, looking fresh and well-rested, like he hadn't just spent the night planning murder and empire. You've made your decision? I have. And? Caleb took a deep breath. I'll do it. I'll work for you. But I want guarantees. Written guarantees that Martha and Ellie won't be touched. Whitmore smiled. A man who protects his investments. I respect that. He pulled a piece of paper from his desk. I had this drawn up last night. It's not legally binding, of course, but it's my word. And in this territory, my word is law. Caleb took the paper and pretended to read it. His eyes scanned the warehouse instead. Counting men. Counting exits. Counting seconds until Billy and Hank made their move. Satisfied? Whitmore asked. One more thing. Yes? The gold. You said you wanted all 40,000. That's correct. I hid it somewhere only I can find. If I bring you to it, you'll need to come alone. My men don't trust you any more than yours trust me. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. You want me to ride into the wilderness alone with the most dangerous outlaw in Wyoming? If you want the gold, yes. For a long moment, Whitmore didn't move. Then he laughed. You've got nerve, Mercer. I'll give you that. He stood up. Very well. We'll ride out together. But if this is a trap, it's not a trap. We'll see. They were saddling horses when the first explosion rocked the warehouse. Men shouted. Glass shattered. Flames erupted from the north wall, spreading fast. Whitmore spun around. What the hell? Caleb drew his gun and pressed it against Whitmore's back. Don't move. You lying son of a... Shut up. Caleb pushed him toward the side door. Walk. Slowly. You can't do this. I have 30 men in that building. Had. They're a little busy right now. Another explosion shook the ground. Screams echoed through the smoke. Caleb kept Whitmore moving, kept the gun pressed against his spine, kept his eyes on the chaos around them. They made it outside, just as the roof collapsed. Billy and Hank were waiting with horses. Let's go, Billy shouted. Caleb shoved Whitmore onto a horse and mounted behind him. They rode hard, leaving the burning warehouse and the screaming men behind. They didn't stop until they reached the old mine where Caleb had hidden Martha and Ellie days before. Whitmore hit the ground hard when Caleb pushed him off the horse. You're dead, Whitmore spat. You and everyone you love. My men will hunt you down. Your men are dead or scattered. Either way, they're not coming. You think you've won? I have connections everywhere. The governor, the railroad, the army. One word from me, you won't be saying any words. Caleb drew his gun. This ends now. Wait, Whitmore held up his hands. Wait, I can offer you everything. Money, power, protection. Name your price. My price? Caleb thought about Martha's smile, about Ellie's eyes, about the way they'd both looked at him like he was worth something. My price is their safety, and you can't give me that. Not anymore. Please! 12 years ago, I buried my wife and daughter. Watched them die and couldn't do anything to stop it. After that, I thought nothing mattered. I thought I was already dead, just walking around waiting for someone to finish the job. He stepped closer, the gun steady in his hand. Then a little girl walked through a blizzard to find me. She offered me $2 to save her mother. $2. Everything she had. His voice cracked. And she looked at me like I was a hero, like I was someone worth believing in. Mercer, please. You threatened them. You threatened the only good thing I have left in this world. Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. That was your mistake. He fired. Whitmore slumped to the ground and didn't move. For a long moment, Caleb just stood there, staring at the body, waiting to feel something. Guilt, satisfaction, anything. What he felt was tired. He holstered his gun and turned away. It's over, he said quietly. Billy put a hand on his shoulder. Yeah, it is. They rode back to the homestead as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Martha was waiting on the porch, her hands twisted together, her face pale with worry. When she saw Caleb riding toward her, she let out a sob and ran to meet him. He barely got off his horse before she was in his arms. I thought you were... I'm here. He held her tight. I'm here. It's over. Over? All of it. Whitmore's dead. His operations destroyed. No one's coming after us anymore. Martha pulled back to look at his face. You're sure? I'm sure. She kissed him then, hard and desperate and real, right there in front of Billy and Hank and God and everyone. Caleb kissed her back. When they finally broke apart, Ellie was standing on the porch watching them with a huge smile on her face. Does this mean Mr. Mercer is staying forever now? Martha laughed through her tears. Yes, baby, he's staying forever. Ellie ran down the steps and threw herself at Caleb. He caught her and lifted her up, holding her against his chest. You came back, she said. I promised I would. And you kept your promise. Always. She hugged him tighter. I knew you were good. I knew it the whole time. Caleb closed his eyes and held on to the two people who had saved him. 3 months later, Caleb Mercer married Martha Thornton in a small ceremony behind the homestead. Thomas gave away the bride. Billy stood as best man. Ellie was the flower girl, scattering wildflowers with more enthusiasm than accuracy. It wasn't much of a wedding. No church, no fancy dress, just a traveling preacher, a handful of guests, and two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. But to Caleb, it was everything. I, Caleb, take you, Martha, to be my wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish, until death do us part. Martha's eyes were bright with tears. I, Martha, take you, Caleb, to be my husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish, until death do us part. The preacher smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Caleb pulled Martha close and kissed her while everyone cheered. When he looked up, Ellie was bouncing on her toes. Does this mean I can call you Papa now? The word hit him like a punch to the chest. Papa. He hadn't heard that word in 12 years. If you want to. I want to. She ran to him and grabbed his hand. Papa, 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 Papa. Caleb knelt down and took her face in his hands. I had a daughter once, he said quietly. Her name was Emily. She would have been about your age now. What happened to her? She got sick. She died when she was very small. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. Me too. For a long time, I thought my heart died with her. Thought I'd never love anyone again. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. But then you found me. You walked through a blizzard and offered me $2 and believed I was good when no one else did. And you brought me back to life. Like magic? Better than magic. He kissed her forehead. Like love. The years passed. The homestead grew. Thomas helped Caleb expand the barn, add more rooms to the cabin, clear more land for crops. Billy and Hank stayed on as hired hands, eventually becoming more like family than employees. The gold, all 40,000 of it, went to rebuilding the town. New school, new church, new doctor's office with a doctor who actually cared about helping people. Nobody knew where the money came from. Nobody asked. Caleb worked the land alongside his family. He learned to plant and harvest and mend fences. His hands, which had once held guns and stolen gold, now held plow handles and his daughter's small fingers. It wasn't always easy. Some nights, the nightmares came back. Some days, the weight of his past felt too heavy to carry. But then Ellie would call him Papa, or Martha would take his hand, and the weight would lift just enough to keep going. On Ellie's 10th birthday, Caleb took her to the hillside where he'd buried Catherine and Emily all those years ago. He'd never gone back, never had the courage, but now, with Ellie's hand in his, he finally did. The graves were overgrown, the wooden crosses weathered and tilting, but they were still there, still holding the people he'd loved and lost. "Papa?" Ellie's voice was soft. "Are you okay?" "Yeah." Caleb knelt beside the smaller grave. "Yeah, I'm okay." He pulled 2 gold coins from his pocket, the same coins Ellie had given him 3 times, the coins that had changed everything. "I want you to have these," he said, pressing them into Emily's grave. "I know you never got to grow up, never got to become the woman I know you would have been. But these coins, they helped me find my way back. They helped me become the man your mama always believed I could be." Tears streamed down his face. "I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. But I found someone who needed saving, and I did my best. I hope," his voice broke, "I hope that's enough. I hope you're proud of me." Ellie knelt beside him and put her arms around his neck. "She's proud of you, Papa. I know she is." "How do you know?" "Because I'm proud of you, and I bet she and I would have been friends." Caleb held his daughter, his second daughter, his miracle, his redemption, and cried for the first time in 12 years. But these weren't tears of grief. They were tears of healing. 20 years later, Caleb sat on the porch of the home he'd built with his own hands, watching his grandchildren play in the yard. Ellie had grown into a beautiful woman. She'd married a good man, a schoolteacher named Samuel, and they'd given Caleb and Martha 3 grandchildren who filled the homestead with laughter and chaos. Martha sat beside him, her hair gray now, her face lined with age, but still the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Everything." He reached over and took her hand. "The day Ellie found me. The blizzard. Those 2 gold coins. That seems like a lifetime ago." It was a lifetime ago. A different life. A different man. Martha squeezed his fingers. "Not so different, just found." "Yeah." He watched his grandchildren chase each other around the yard. "Found. That's a good word for it." The door opened and Ellie stepped out, her youngest on her hip. "Papa, Samuel's asking if you want to go fishing tomorrow." "Tell him yes, if my old bones can make it to the river." "Your bones are fine," Ellie laughed and kissed his cheek. "You're too stubborn to get old." "That's what your mama keeps telling me." Ellie went back inside, and Caleb turned his face to the setting sun. He thought about the man he used to be. Cold Hand Mercer. He turned to look at her. "But then I think about everything that led me here. To you, to Ellie, to this life. And I realized that maybe I needed to be lost for a while. Maybe that's the only way I could appreciate being found." Martha leaned her head against his shoulder. "I love you, Caleb Mercer." "I love you too, Martha Mercer." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, the same colors as that first sunset, all those years ago, when a half-frozen child had stumbled into his camp with $2 and a dying wish. They were worth more than all the money in the world. because they reminded him of the truth he'd learned that day in the blizzard, that it's never too late to change, that one